Stefan, dear, where's that golden bracelet I bought when we traveled to Egypt?
I don't know, Mom. You must have misplaced it again. Honestly, what's the need of expensive jewelry if you never wear them? You just keep misplacing everything. She sat in front of her enormous dressing mirror, which had gold edges, and was having her makeup done by Joan Marpierre, the most famous and most well-known makeup artist in the world. Just one of my mother's rich friends. Just then, my dad walked into the room. I could smell him before I could see him because of the perfume he always had on. Tom Ford Diamond Edition. Only 10 bottles of that perfume were made, and my dad had 6 of them. They each went for about $275,000 a bottle and were notoriously hard to get. He also had on a gray Giorgio Armani pinstripe suit, which also cost tens of thousands of dollars. My father had expensive taste, and I couldn't blame him for that. My father grew up in an extremely poor household with 5 siblings who often went for days without having anything to eat. He saw firsthand the effects of poverty and hardship and swore to do whatever it took to never be poor. From a young age, he had to work numerous hours a day, working several jobs to make ends meet. He toiled endlessly until one day he finally hit the jackpot. Fast forward many years into the future, and my father was now an extremely rich man. He was a billionaire who owned one of the biggest, if not the biggest telecommunication companies in the world. He also had several companies which made him millions of dollars a year. I was born into this life of extreme luxury, and it's all that I've ever known. A lot of people envy me and wish their family was as rich as mine. Click the link and subscribe button, and who knows, maybe you'll someday become as rich as we are. You can only find out if you try. For as long as I could remember, we had always lived in this enormous mansion on the hillside surrounded by a lot of maids, butlers, and cooks who all served me. They were at my every beck and call. My mother always told me that very few people in the world had or will ever have the kind of wealth we had, and that I was special, and I believed it too. Nobody was allowed to come close to me without my permission, and whenever I walked through the corridors in the mansion, everyone in the vicinity had to stop what they were doing until I was out of there. Despite the abundance of maids and butlers, my mom was always very particular about who interacted with me. She insisted that she was the only one who could attend to my needs. I was always treated differently in school, and I liked it. I remember when Mr. Johnson got fired because he wouldn't stop one kid from sneezing so much. I was the one who demanded his firing, and also the expulsion of the sneezing student. Who did they think they were? The day for college resumption finally arrived, and I was driven there in a limo. It was one of the most prestigious colleges in the country, and I was sure I was going to enjoy it.
All right, my special boy. Take care of yourself and don't forget to call me every day,
my mom said as she gave me a peck on the cheek. Mom, you know I'm not still a child, right? I replied as I got out of the limo. My dad, who was also in the car, handed me a wad of cash and bid me farewell.
Good luck, son.
I struggled to stuff the enormous wad of cash in my pockets as I walked to my lecture hall, and as soon as I turned a corner, I felt something smack into me and knock me over. What just happened? I said to no one in particular as I opened my eyes and struggled to regain my composure. On the floor with me was a girl.
Are you blind?
She asked. What?
I said, are you blind? Because only a blind person would have walked into me the way you did. Maybe if you were paying attention to where you were actually going, instead of just walking around like a headless giraffe, I wouldn't now be on the floor.
She screamed at me as she got up and walked away, leaving me stunned. No one had ever yelled at me before. I managed to get up and find my lecture hall, but because I was late, there was only one seat available. I sat down before I realized that sitting beside me was the same girl who had knocked me over. We gave each other cold stares as the class continued. I learned that her name was Elena, and we were both studying the same course. I also painfully learned that she was smarter than me as she had the highest GPA out of everyone in our class after the end of semester results were announced. I came second, and after the scolding I received from my parents, I decided to befriend Elena, learn her secrets and become better than her, and then get rid of her after I had gotten what I wanted. Second year rolled out, and I made a peace offering to Elena. I got her a brand new iPad and MacBook, and also apologized for my previous behavior. And soon after, we hung around each other and studied together. I became much nicer to her, but after a while, she said she had to tell me something. Is there a problem? I asked, worried.
Yes, there is, and the problem is you.
Elena replied, staring straight into my eyes. I began to panic. What had I done? Did she hear anything bad about me? But I'd been treating her nicely, right? But I treat you nicely. How can I be the problem? A bewildered me asked again.
And that there is the problem. You treat me nicely, but you are a very big douche to everyone else. That's not how it's gonna work. You either treat everyone nicely or this little arrangement we have here ends. You will have to find someone else to study with and tutor you if your behavior doesn't change.
I didn't have anything else to say, so I quietly agreed to her condition, and at the end of that particular semester, we ended up with the same GPA. The more time we spent together, the more I realized something. I realized that little by little I was changing. I noticed it when I wanted to publicly embarrass someone, but I stopped to think about how it would make the person feel. The Steven of before didn't give a hoot about how people felt. He just did what he wanted to do when he wanted to do it. And then it happened. By the end of my third year in college, I finally surpassed Elena. I now had the highest CGPA in class. But instead of getting rid of Elena, I resolved to keep her around and planned to ask her out. It happened when we had resumed for the fourth year. I called Elena to meet me in the school cafeteria, and there I sat waiting, but she didn't show up. I was disappointed, along with the crowd I had gathered to witness the spectacle I had planned. As soon as I saw her in class, I approached her, but she instantly rejected me. I tried numerous times, but they were all met with the same response, and it went on for the rest of the year, which made me angry. I wasn't only angry at her behavior, I was angry because of all I had spent on her. I felt used and betrayed. Throughout the year, she didn't even utter a single word to me, and that hurt me more. I channeled all my feelings of hurt and betrayal into my studies, and I decided that I was going to give this year my all. It was going to be the best year for me, and I studied like I'd never studied before. And it paid off handsomely. Not only did I still have the highest GPA in class, I had a perfect GPA, as I had A's in every single one of my courses that semester. Although I had achieved this feat, I still wasn't happy. I was home for the summer, and my parents were extremely excited about my results. This was what they had always wanted, and they were so overjoyed that they instantly began planning a family vacation to Greece. I was walking around the hallways of the mansion one day when I overheard some of the maids gossiping. They were whispering to each other and talking in hushed tones. I hated it when people whispered around me, as it always made me feel like they didn't want me to know about whatever secret they were talking about. I was about to walk in there to scold them for gossiping, but I stopped as I heard one of them say something that sounded like Elena. Out of curiosity, I hid behind a pillar and listened in on their conversation. They were talking about a girl who was invited to the house and was seriously warned against coming close to me. I decided to come out of hiding and confront the maids. I showed them a picture of Elena on my iPhone and asked if she was the one they were talking about. They replied in the affirmative, and my legs pounded on the exquisite wooden floors as I ran to my parents' room to confront them about it.
Yes, dear, I invited her over to warn her to stay away from you.
My mother replied after I confronted her. It's none of your business who I interact with, and you had no right to say that to Elena, I shouted back angrily.
Well, it is my business, son. You are a special, special boy, and you should not be interacting with just anybody. I did this for you, son, to help you get to the next level. That girl was nothing but a distraction.
Mom said quietly, reaching out her hand to me. As I stood there, I could feel nothing but anger coursing through my body. And in a few minutes, I was out of the mansion and driving to Elena's place with my suitcase packed. I met her mom at the door and I broke down in tears as I told her about everything. She felt bad for me and invited me in. She even called down Elena and explained to her what had happened. Her mom soon left us alone, and all I could do was stare at Elena with tears still pouring down my face. After a few minutes of silence, Elena shifted her chair, stood up, and walked towards the kitchen counter, returning with a wipe.
I understand,
she said as she dried my eyes with the wipe.
I'm sorry for how I treated you all throughout this year. You didn't deserve it, and I should have given you a chance to explain,
she continued while looking into my eyes. I don't blame you. I know how it must have hurt you. You probably thought that I was the one who put them up to it.
That's what I thought. I thought you were just a coward hiding behind your parents to get rid of me, but I know better now,
she said, beginning with a smile. We made up and I drove back home that night. My mom was worried about me as she had called me numerous times, but I refused to pick up. She ran out of the door as soon as she saw my car pull into the driveway.
I'm sorry, dear. I thought it was what was best for you.
You don't always know what's best for me, Mom. You've got to stop interfering in my life. It's my life, not yours, I replied. We had a long talk, which lasted several hours, and my mom apologized at the end of it. She also promised to not interfere with my life anymore. I and Elena met up numerous times after that day, and I soon proposed to her. She said she loved me and would gladly accept my proposal on the condition that I stopped being rude, mean, and an unlikable person. I promised to work on myself to change, and I did so. And after she had seen a significant change in me, she accepted my proposal, and we got married just a few weeks later. We're currently still married, and we are enjoying every second of it. If you enjoyed this, click the like and subscribe button to enjoy more of such stories. Where am I? Suddenly, memories flooded my thoughts. The party, the girls, the accident.
Johnny,
Mom hugged me.
you're finally awake.
She sighed.
Francine, let him breathe.
Dad's jovial voice filled the room.
I must say, he does look better with those bandages.
Hillary, my sister who was 2 years older than me, smirked before she gave me a hug. An older lady in a white coat walked into the room.
Hi, John. I'm Dr. Patricia Reyes.
What she told me next totally changed my life. Keep watching if you want to see how my crazy story turns out. What? What do you mean you had to remove my leg? I felt nauseated. But school, baseball, hockey, my scholarship. I buried my head in my hands and cried. Hillary held me in her arms while Mom and Dad moved outside the room to chat with Dr. Reyes.
It'll be okay, Johnny.
Later, I got discharged and was able to go home. At home, things were financially and emotionally strained. One evening, I overheard my parents discussing the bills and that they needed a miracle. I needed a way to help my parents, but what was I to do? I sat in my bedroom. I heard a knock on the door. Hillary walked in with a pair of crutches and handed them to me.
Allison's brother Todd said you could have these. This helped him out a lot after his football accident.
Thanks, Hill. She kissed me on the forehead before she left. Another 2 weeks passed before Mom and Dad agreed it was time for me to head back to school. There was a knock on the front door.
I see you're looking good as ever.
Brendan, my best friend, greeted me with a bear hug. I chuckled. We'd better get going. I don't want to be late for the first day back at school. Over the next few weeks, I began to feel more like myself. One afternoon, Brendan busted into my room with his phone in his hand.
Hey, Johnny, take a look at this.
Brendan handed me his phone. ProTech Company is ready to give back. Win one of our prosthetic legs today. It went on to say in order to win, the family or friends of the individual must create a video stating why they're deserving of the leg. The cost of each leg was $30,000, and there were 3 legs to be won.
What's going on here?
Hillary peeked into my bedroom.
I, the best friend, found the ultimate solution for Johnny.
I handed Hillary the phone, who skimmed over the article.
This sounds way too good to be true. Let me do a quick search on Mr. Chang.
Hillary went on to tell us that Mr. Chang, the CEO and founder, recently won the lottery, which helped him get his company on track after struggling for the past 2 years. Mr. Chang's father lost his leg in a car accident when Mr. Chang was just a little boy. It was hard for his family because his dad was the breadwinner, and during that time, prosthetics weren't an option.
So does this mean we can go ahead and shoot the video?
I don't see why not.
During dinner, Hillary and I pitched the video to our parents, who agreed to help out. Over the next few days, my family, Brendan, and even some of the kids and teachers at school put together a video, and Brendan submitted it. Approximately 3 months later, we received a congratulatory letter from ProTech. I couldn't believe it. I won. We got a date and a time to go into ProTech to meet with Mr. Chang for a fitting of the leg. Once the fitting of the leg was completed, I thought about how much my life was going to change with the help of the prosthetic leg. What I didn't count on was the rivalry and betrayal that came with it. About 6 months later, Brendan, Hillary, and I were hanging out at home in Hillary's room, while Mom and Dad were downstairs when the news report came on.
Tonight, local authorities found CEO and founder of ProTech, Mr. Chang, dead at his office. Rumor has it that Mr. Chang was doing some shady business with this international gang, D. Chatty, but the police didn't deny or confirm our suspicions.
I switched off the television.
I've heard the name of that gang before.
Hillary picked up her phone and searched the internet.
D. Chatty Gang is infamous for jewelry heists and selling gold and other precious metals to the highest bidder. There is also a rumor that he stole some jewelry from Chatty and hid them in his prosthetic limbs.
Hillary gasped.
Johnny, do you think?
I removed my leg and Hillary opened it slowly using scissors. Hillary turned the leg upside down and something caught her eye. She took the scissors and pried the sole of the leg off, and sure enough, there we found diamonds attached to a black cloth.
Wow!
Brendan took the cloth from Hillary as she reattached the sole to the leg before she returned it to me. We need to find a place to hide that. I attached the leg to my stump. Suddenly, shouts from downstairs caught our attention. Hillary and I darted downstairs. In the kitchen stood 4 men. 2 of them were tying our parents to the kitchen chairs. One of the men walked towards us with a devilish smile.
We're looking for the person in the house with the fake leg. Leave my children alone!
Dad struggled against his ropes. One of the men slammed a baton into Dad's leg. Dad howled in pain and the man laughed.
Well, that isn't the prosthetic leg. Shall I try the other one?
No, I screamed. Dad pleaded.
Johnny, no!
I'm the one you want. One of the men grabbed Hillary and tied her to the chair while I was ordered to remove my leg. My hands trembled as I did as they asked. As soon as I handed over the leg, I was tied up next to the rest of my family. My family looked on as the men took the leg apart and searched it. When they didn't find anything, I watched as they shattered the leg against the wall, then dropped the remaining fragments onto the floor. Over the next 15 minutes, the men trashed the house and stole whatever their hands could carry before exiting. Hillary was able to loosen her ropes and she untied everyone. Immediately, Mom called the police and Hillary called an ambulance for Dad. First to arrive was the police, and shortly after, the ambulance. The police questioned Hillary and I, then followed Mom and Dad to the hospital to question them there.
I'm so sorry about your leg, John.
Hillary squeezed my hand. It's okay. With the diamonds, I can get another one.
I wonder where Brendan ran off to. He can't be in the house or the men would have caught him. I'll take a look outside.
Hillary disappeared through the front door. She returned 15 minutes later.
Brendan is nowhere to be seen. You don't think he ran away with the diamonds, do you?
He'd never do something like that. Or so I thought. That week, Brendan wasn't at school, nor was he answering any of our phone calls. Hillary also passed by his home since he lived just down the street. But his mom, Mrs. Pinder, said he was too busy with homework to come and chat with her.
I can't believe Brendan would betray us like that.
Hillary hissed angrily as she sat on my bed. I'm finding it hard to believe that myself.
Let's break in.
My eyes widened. What?
You heard me. Let's break in.
Even though I wasn't thrilled about the idea, I realized we didn't have a choice. Later that night, I watched as Hillary adjusted a mic and camera onto her clothes. She ensured that everything was streamed to my laptop.
Okay, I'll see you in a bit.
She grabbed the torchlight from my desk. Please be safe, Hill. She kissed me on my forehead, smiled, and left my room without a word. I sat there nervously as I watched Hillary move closer to Brendan's house. She went to the back of the house and jimmied a window open before she slid inside the house. Once inside, she quickly made her way to Brendan's bedroom.
He's not here, Johnny.
Suddenly, Brendan's bedroom light flickered on and Hillary came face to face with Mrs. Pinder.
What are you doing in Brendan's bedroom? I was worried about Brendan. He and Johnny are inseparable. I'm so sorry.
Hillary broke down into tears, which made Mrs. Pinder cry as well. Through the tears, Mrs. Pinder revealed that she and her husband had received a text message from Brendan saying that he needed some time for himself. She said they contacted the police, but the police told them there was nothing they could do since he was of age. Hillary thanked Mrs. Pinder and left the house. That snake! I slammed my fist against my desk angrily. After Hillary got home, I told her I had a plan. I told her not to worry about it as we said goodnight to each other. I made contact with one of the members of the D Chatty gang. I told them that I wanted to cut a deal. I know who took the diamonds. In return, I'd like my sister's tuition, my parents' mortgage, and hospital bills paid in full. The person on the other end told me to send Brendan's picture, and if they didn't find the diamonds on him, they'd come for me. The line went dead. About a week later, Mrs. Pinder informed us that Brendan was found, but he was in the hospital. His face was swollen where he was unrecognizable. The doctors weren't sure if he was going to pull through. One afternoon, I came home and saw a brown paper package on the doorstep addressed to my parents. I gave it to Dad, who opened it. There was a little note.
We've seen how hard you've worked to provide for your family, and we just wanted to give you a small gift.
In the box were receipts from the hospital, bank, and college, stamped and paid in full. Mom and Dad were so excited that they didn't notice the look Hillary and I exchanged. 2 years passed, and Hillary and I never spoke about the package or its contents. Within those 2 years, Brendan and his family moved away, and I got a new leg. While on our family vacation, Hillary and I were sitting, relaxing at a resort poolside, having drinks, while our parents were having dinner. Suddenly, my eyes widened. Isn't that Brendan? Hillary spun around, but by that time he was already gone. Hillary turned to me.
Do you really think it was him?
It wasn't long before Brendan showed up and gave a drink to another vacationer. Look, there he is again.
I'm going over.
I gulped the last of my drink and followed her.
Hi.
Brendan smiled politely.
Good evening, ma'am. How may I help you?
Brendan, it's Hillary.
He stared at her blindly.
Can I get you something to drink?
I grabbed her arm. Come on, Hill, it's time to go. I pulled her away gently until we were out of earshot. Something is wrong here. Why doesn't he remember us? Hillary leaned in.
Do you think it was anything to do with what happened 2 years ago?
I shrugged. Maybe.
I think we should investigate.
No, I think we should just leave it alone and go back to our rooms. Hillary had a determined look on her face. She sank into one of the pool chairs. I sighed heavily and sat next to her and waited. About an hour later, we heard the supervisor wish Brendan a good night.
Here's our chance to follow him.
Hillary whispered eagerly. Reluctantly, I followed Hillary. We followed Brendan to the elevators where he got in.
Okay, I'll follow him through the stairs, and you tell me which floor he came out on, okay?
I pulled out my phone to call Hillary as she darted towards the staircase. I watched as the elevator went to the underground parking lot, and I told Hillary.
I see him. He's going through a red door. Hurry up and get down here. I don't want to lose him.
Hillary hung up. I entered the elevator quickly and met Hillary in the parking lot.
Okay, he went through that door. Let's go.
We ensured the coast was clear before we opened the door and slipped inside. Before us was a long, brightly lit white corridor with numbered doors on either side. At the end of the corridor was a large double door with the exit sign over it. We were almost to the double doors when we heard voices. Immediately, we slipped into one of the rooms. In the room was a bed and a closet. On the bed was Brendan, who looked like he was asleep. We heard voices outside the door and hid in the closet with the door slightly ajar. We held our breath as a man and a woman entered the room. They went to Brendan's bedside and injected something into the back of his neck before they left the room. As soon as we thought the coast was clear, Hillary and I ran out of there, and we didn't stop until we were safe outside our hotel room. We need to find Mom and Dad and get out of here. I pushed open the door to the hotel room. As soon as we entered, 2 men overpowered us, and we were both knocked unconscious. I rubbed the back of my neck and opened my eyes. How did I get back home? I ran through the house looking for my family. No one was there. My eyes glanced at the walls. All of our family portraits were gone. The only portraits up were of me. I entered the kitchen, and on the table was a brown paper package. I opened it slowly. There were pictures of my family smiling, and stamped on the other side was "Paid in full." I pulled out a note that was in the box. It was from the leader of the D Chatty gang. It said that my family was now under their care, and I was spared because I gave them the information to find Brendan. The problem was, by the time they found him, he had already sold half the diamonds, so the gang needed to be compensated for the other half. To this day, I'm still searching for my family. All records of them have been removed from the system. It's as though they never existed. Police have tried to tell me they never existed, but I know that I'll see them again one day. I just have to keep hope alive. Mom, Dad, Angelica, someone open the door. I knocked, rang the doorbell, banged on the windows, but nothing. I didn't have the keys to my house because someone was always home. I should have probably just sat on my doorstep and waited, but instead, I decided to go to my neighbor's house. It was a weird place, by the way. The windows were tinted and it was really hard to see what was going on in there. I'd only seen my neighbor, a middle-aged man, about 4 times. I supposed it was a good chance to go meet the guy. This decision changed my life and caused a whole bunch of crazy things to happen. Stick with me here because this is nuts. I knocked on my neighbor's door but heard nothing. I went to the window and heard some weird mumbling noises. I pressed my eyes on the glass to see what was making the noise, and I noticed that my neighbor was dressed in a black cloak, and he seemed to be performing some weird kind of ritual. Suddenly, he glanced at me and frowned. In a few seconds, he came to the front door and opened it.
What are you doing here? What do you want?
My house is locked and I can't get inside, so I figured I'd come to say hi. What are you doing?
A magic ritual. You think I'm kidding, don't you? Well, come inside. I'm still an amateur, but I need someone to practice on.
I don't know what persuaded me to get in. I should have just walked in the other direction, but I guess I was curious about what he was doing. I didn't even believe in magic. Maybe I just wanted to be entertained. His living room was the weirdest one I'd ever seen in my life. All the furniture was black and the walls were painted purple. He had stuffed dead animals all over the place. I was horrified. What's with all the animals?
I'm a taxidermist, but part-time I'm a warlock.
What's that?
Like a witch, but male.
You're really funny. What's your name anyway?
You're really silly for assuming I'm joking. My name is Arthur. That's all you need to know. Now, come here and sit on this chair.
I was beginning to feel a bit spooked out, and I honestly wanted to run away, but I felt like it would be safer just to listen to him. I sat on a chair and he drew a circle around it. Then he turned his back, muttered a few words, and threw an odd-smelling liquid on me. After that, he left the room. After just sitting there for a while, he returned and looked at me, confused.
What are you still doing here?
I can leave now?
Yes.
What did you do to me?
Well, if the experiment went well, you'll be able to look any age you want. Just rub your thumb and your index finger together and think about what age you want to be. You should transform within a few seconds.
I decided to try it in front of him. I thought about being 80 years old and rubbed my fingers together. And, ooh, there I was, with wrinkles all over. Arthur brought me a mirror so I could see myself. Oh my gosh, but how do I change back? Whoa, you really are a witch.
Warlock, just rub your fingers together again and think about your actual age.
I listened to him and turned back into my normal self. I was freaked out. Like, you seriously can't imagine how freaked out I was. I ran out of his house and went back to mine. The door was open and my mom was in the kitchen unpacking groceries.
What's wrong, honey? You look like you've just seen a ghost.
Nothing, Mom. I went to my room to try to figure out what to do with my new power. I rubbed my fingers and transformed myself into different ages while looking at myself in the mirror. It was a bit funny. Then I got a bright idea. See, there was this kid at school called Blake who kept picking on me, and I think he wanted to fight me the next day. The only person who knew about my feud with him was my best friend Julian. I thought I could take the day off to do something fun instead of going to school. So here's the stupid thing I did. I left for school as usual the next day. Then I walked over to the nearest elementary school. I transformed into a middle-aged man and went to the principal's office pretending I wanted to register a kid. I gave myself a fake name, then told the principal the kid would arrive in a while. I left the room, then returned as a 5-year-old kid.
Hi, Bobby. Where's your dad?
He had to leave. Where's my class?
I'll take you.
He took me to a kindergarten class and I laughed inside. I was going to have some fun. First, I started off by telling the kids that Santa, the Tooth Fairy, and the Easter Bunny didn't exist. Then I started telling them all kinds of scary stories about aliens. They started crying, and I know you're probably thinking that's really mean, but I found it hilarious. At the end of the day, I left that place and never went back. Everyone's probably wondering who I was and how I vanished so suddenly. I needed something more mischievous to do, and I still didn't want to face Blake. So the next day, I went to my real school, but this time as an older man. I went to the principal's office. Good morning, Mr. Anthony. I'm Brian Wells, and I've been assigned to your school as a second guidance counselor.
That's wonderful. We really need you here, and we actually have a spare office that I'll take you to right now.
This was so incredibly easy, and I couldn't wait to give the most awful advice ever. To my delight, my first client was Delilah, a girl I'd been crushing on since the 6th grade. She said she was sad because her cat died. I'm sorry to hear that, but have you considered getting a boyfriend maybe?
Are adults even supposed to give advice like that?
Well, dear, the times have changed. I heard there's this awesome boy that goes to your school, Fabian. Maybe you should go out with him.
Are you really a professional?
Definitely, and I solve 100% of people's problems. Trust me. She looked confused, but eventually left my office smiling. But nothing would have prepared me for my next client, Blake, the very person I was trying to avoid.
My chemistry teacher sent me here because she says I have anger issues.
Okay, Blake, and what do you think is causing that?
Well, I have a crush on someone, but they don't seem to get the point.
Have you tried speaking to them?
No.
What do you do then?
Well, I make his life hell, basically. I'm always picking on him and threatening him.
Oh, so it's a boy. I see. I paused, gulped, and froze. Was it me Blake was in love with? Blake, did you threaten to fight with him this week at school?
Yeah. How'd you know?
Well, I actually think I know who you're talking about, and my suggestion is that you focus on someone else. Also, you should not show affection by doing or saying hurtful things. That can sometimes have the opposite effect, okay?
Okay. Can I leave now?
This was weird as hell, as you can tell by now. But I wanted to see if Delilah would have taken my advice, so I switched back into my normal self and went to look for her. I found her next to her locker. Hey, Delilah.
Hi, Fabian.
Do you want to watch a movie with me this Saturday? She looked at me like she was hesitating for a while, then she answered,
Okay.
So you probably think I used my powers to get a date, but let me tell you, I wasn't satisfied, and the next thing I did will probably make you think I'm a real jerk. But anyway, I really wasn't in the mood to go to classes that day, so I changed back into my school counselor persona and went back to my office. After playing games on the computer for about an hour, the principal came in with Julian's mom. You remember Julian, right? My best friend? Anyway, a quick background story. I'd always had a bit of a crush on her. I mean, although she's my friend's mom, she's hot. And when I say hot, I mean hot. She only wore the latest designer clothes, which were all tight-fitting and brought out her curves perfectly. She always smelled like really expensive perfume, and everything about her was just totally irresistible.
Mr. Wells, I brought in a parent who says she needs to speak to you about something urgently.
Thank you, Principal Anthony. You can leave and I'll try my best to assist. The principal showed her to a seat and left the room. Julian's mom, right?
How do you know?
Well, anyway, I'm here to talk to you about him. Lately, he's been so lazy. He doesn't do any homework and he's flunking all of his classes. Do you think there might be a problem? I've tried talking to him, but he won't say much to me.
I'll try to talk to him to find out what's wrong. On another note, would you like to go out with me on Saturday evening?
Well, that's weird of you to ask so soon, but, okay.
It was only when Friday arrived that I realized I'd scheduled 2 dates for the same day. But before worrying about that, I decided to talk to Julian because I really didn't know that he was flunking all his classes. Hey Julian, is everything okay lately?
Not really.
What's wrong?
Well, my mom got a new boyfriend, and he's really weird. I don't like him, and I miss my dad. I wish they never divorced.
Well, they did what was best for them, and I'm sure that new boyfriend will be out of the picture soon. I smiled inside because I was going to make sure she fell for me so hard that she'd let that other guy go. Aren't I a good friend? So Saturday came and I sort of rushed my date with Delilah because I was more excited about meeting Julian's mom later. Don't get me wrong though, Delilah looked really cute and I made sure I got a goodbye kiss when our date was over. After that, I changed back into my middle-aged self and went to Julian's house to pick up his mom. She was stunning. She was wearing a tight-fitting red dress with a perfect necklace, earrings, and shoes to match. I told her that my car broke down, so I asked her if she could drive us. The truth was that I didn't even have a license, but whatever. We ate at a fancy restaurant, and I couldn't stop staring at her the whole time. I paid for our expensive dinner with my life savings, then we went back home. We stood on her porch, and just as I was about to go in for my goodnight kiss, I saw my crazy neighbor charging towards us.
Vivian, are you cheating on me?
Arthur, no, it's not what it looks like.
Oh my gosh, Arthur's your boyfriend?
It's you, that stupid boy. I'll put another curse on you. You'll never be able to grow again.
He stared at me and muttered something under his breath, and I transformed back into a teenage boy.
Oh my gosh, I just went on a date with a kid. But how did you pay for all of this? Arthur, I told you to stop dabbling in the occult. I'm breaking up with you. You're too weird and spooky.
No, I'm breaking up with you. How could you go on a date knowing we were in a relationship?
So, I guess I solved Julian's problem, huh? But I didn't get to make out with his mom, and that was sad. Anyway, instead of staying and listening to their argument, I walked home feeling worried, confused, but also a bit amused. It's been 10 years since that incident, and I still look the same as I did 10 years ago. I've tried so many things to look older, but I just can't. But somehow Delilah still likes me and we're still going out. So maybe it's not all bad. But I'm staying away from all the weird neighbors from now on.